G'day Bomber fans, it is player ratings time. We lost against the Suns on the weekend, but there was a bit to like. Most notably for the future, that's been the theme of these videos the last few weeks. So there are again going to be some weird ratings, some low, some high. It's a bit of a mix. Remember, this is all based on players' expectations. Merrett doesn't get the same treatment as Lachlan Blakiston, so keep that in mind. But let's get into it. Let's go. Starting with Andy McGrath, and let me say, McGrath's been around for a while now. I don't remember a time where he's played this many poor games in a row. Usually, like, he's got a poor game in him, we all know that, but I can't remember a time where he's played 2 or 3, stinkers by his standards in a row. And yeah, he's not in the greatest run of form. I thought he was not at his best defensively, which is rare. And maybe that's because he didn't really have that, dangerous forward to play on. I think he was on Bailey Humphrey for most of the game. He lost his direct opponent for the first goal, and I think there was another one that might have been his fault as well. And with ball in hand, when he had the footy, I thought he was doing okay things with it. He was involved in a fair bit of our scoring going forward, but the issue is he didn't get his hands on the footy nearly enough. And that isn't, always an issue with defenders. If he was to have a role on a dangerous opposition forward and hold them down, do the usual McGrath stuff, it would be fine. But I don't think he was involved enough going forward, especially because when he was involved, it was good. And defensively, he wasn't bad, but he wasn't at his best, I'd say. And given his place at the club, vice-captain, leader, we've got to hold him to higher standards. I think he'd be pretty disappointed with his game. I'm going to give him a 4. I don't think he'd be happy with it at all. That's coming from me because I don't think I was happy with it. Jye Caldwell. The big news here is, and I hate this happens every week, we've always got someone that we talk about like this. He's done his ankle, syndesmosis, requires surgery, that'd be season done, you'd think. Syndesmosis turnarounds aren't usually that bad, but there wouldn't be much point bringing him back even if he does recover before the season ends. In this game, I thought he was okay despite the lower stat lines. He didn't get too much of the footy, 15 touches, fair few really solid defensive efforts. He had that really courageous mark as well, the one that resulted in the Peter Wright goal. So his moments do feel bigger and better when they're around. That's the good thing about Caldwell. I'm going to give him a 6. He'll be missed to close out the year. That's his second injury of the season. And we have to remember, he was an injury-prone player before the last couple of years as well. So yeah, you don't want to see him ending years before they're done. Hopefully next year he's back better than ever. Zach Merrett, he's back. He needed the rest. You could tell he was flagging before the bye. Was it mental? Was it physical? Whatever it was, he's back now. He's back in the midfield too, full-time minutes. That is great. And he goes out and gets leather poisoning in his first game back. 40 touches, 8 inside 50s, 9 score involvements. It was a pretty typical Merrett masterclass. The only thing keeping him off a 10 is the fact that he had 40 touches, and I would say that there were probably a couple of Gold Coast players with higher impact. Some would argue Sam Durham had a better game. I gave the votes to Merrett. I thought he was great. Hard to look past some of his efforts going forward. He was pretty awesome. 9 out of 10. He was pretty nutty, but I wouldn't say he was the difference in this game. I think, him and Durham together were both so elite. That level was matched or bettered by Anderson and Miller and Joel Jeffrey. There were a few really strong individual performances from this game. I'd say all of them were probably 9s out of 10. I give 10s to players who completely changed the game, and I don't think Merrett did that. So 9 out of 10, I think. Ben Hobbs, really tough player to judge. I feel like every week he's a tough player to judge. I think he did plenty right. He got into the skin of, who was it? It wasn't Rio. Oh, Noble. He got into the skin of Noble to get that first goal of the game, and that's a good thing about Ben Hobbs. We know he's a little bit of a pest, and it's when you're a pest and it works, it's even better because you get the goal and piss him off even more. He did find plenty of the ball in transition as well, and I liked a bit of his pressure. There were elements of his game that were decent. I think we can all agree on that. The issue is everything that went wrong for him was so glaringly bad. I get why there is Hobbs criticism from this game. I don't think he was anywhere near our worst player, but the bad from this game was really bad. I thought he made some crucial mistakes. He didn't go hard enough when we needed him to. That contest on the wing where he put the one hand out, thinking that there was going to be heat coming the other way, and there wasn't, and it's unfortunately just really embarrassing when that happens. And you compare that with the Caldwell one, with the Peter Wright goal. Yeah, I mean, we just needed him to go a bit harder. We would have been out and probably would have got a goal from it. Not that it would have made too much of a difference, but yeah, it's not like there were good parts of his game, as I said, good portions, but when it was bad, it was really bad. I think smack bang in the middle, 5 out of 10 for Hobbs. I think the hate from this game in particular is overblown. I think why there is so much hate is because it is kind of mounting. Every week there is something going wrong in his game. And yeah, I don't think he was the issue or close to it, but he's clearly a bit of not a weak link, because he hasn't been horrendous these last 2 weeks. It's just building and building, and he hasn't really had a good game in a while. Yeah, I wouldn't mind seeing him in the VFL, but unfortunately, we don't have any options to come in and replace him. I know everyone says Sartas. They are completely different players. Oscar Smart is the one I'd want to see, but then there's another player who I'll talk about in a bit who could be replaced by Oscar Smart. But yeah, I'm going to give Ben Hobbs a 5 out of 10. I don't think he was the problem, but he wasn't very good. Isaac Kako, that was good. That was by far his best game for the Bombers, and Rising Star nomination. There you go, the 4th of the year. That is great stuff, and we're still counting. For everyone doubting Kako, for some, I don't know why there's Kako doubt, but there was. This game is a glimpse into what makes him, or will make him, such a dangerous player for the future. He was so good for us up forward, so clean with the footy on ground level. He doesn't double take. He's got great hands and a great centre of gravity on the ground. Great quick hand passing as well. He was so slick and fast at the footy. His pressure was great. So many repeat efforts. Everything he touched turned to gold. He had 23 less disposals than Zach Merrett, but just 2 less score involvements. 17 touches, 7 score involvements, 1 really clever goal, and yeah, the second most involvements for our side. I'm going to give him an 8. For a first-year player to be that energetic and that lively up forward, especially after a slowish start to the year, I think that's even more impressive. We're seeing him really play good footy, because I thought he was good against Freo, and I don't think it's long now till we see him kick a bag. I don't think he needs to, but for his confidence, I think he'd like to. I think this Rising Star nomination is going to give him it's going to give him a little bit more confidence, and this is just a really good sign and a good glimpse into how we can look up forward when we start playing good team footy with Caddy, Kako, Archer, May. That forward line is starting to function, and it's the kids leading the way. So good stuff from Kako, 8 out of 10. Jade Gresham. Yeah, this is when I spoke about Oscar Smart before. This is the guy that I think probably could come out for him. I don't see why Gresham is still in the side. I don't know what he's really providing. I like him at his best. Okay, I'm not completely lost on him. I like Gresham playing good footy. I think it benefits the team when Gresham is playing good footy, and Gresham at his best is going to be better than most of our small forwards, probably including Kako, just because he's got that more experience. The issue is, I don't remember the last time he was at his best. And look, we'll be a bit nicer here because he was the sub. He played, 10 seconds of footy, 18% game time, I think. But yeah, he had the 1 touch, gave away 2 free kicks. It wasn't a great sub cameo, I will say that. And the thing is, Gresham's had some good sub games this year. He started as the sub against Hawthorn, and I thought that was a really good effort. But yeah, I think, hopefully this is enough for him to be dropped to the Rezzies, and Smart, or even Matt Guelphy. Why was Matt Guelphy dropped? Matt Guelphy in for Gresham or Smart. We can't keep going on with Gresham in the side not providing, because at the moment he is a weak link, and that, I don't like saying stuff like that, but it's kind of true. What's he been doing for us lately? So yeah, 3 out of 10. I would give him lower, but he was the sub, and you got to cut the subs a bit more slack. So he gets the dreaded 3. Or does he get a 2? No, I'm going to give him a 3. He was the sub. Will Setterfield, I'm going to give him I'm going to decide in a bit. I feel like he was not at his best with the footy. He didn't get much going in the midfield himself. A lot of little hand passes, but there wasn't much damage in his game. He did, however, keep Matt Rowell down really well. He was playing on Rowell, and Rowell managed to feature pretty well defensively. He got a million tackles, and he stemmed our flow a bit. But the midfield battle was really even, and a big reason for that was Setterfield and his negating work on their clearance beast, Matt Rowell. Let's give him an 8 out of 10. I feel like Setterfield's impact on the game was bigger than Rowell's, and Rowell has had such a big impact on games this year. I think Setterfield was one of our better players on the night. I gave him a role player vote. Probably could have even gotten the 1 vote as well. 8 out of 10. I think he had the better of Rowell. I think even Rowell would say that. And if we win that game, we talk about the work Setterfield did in it more, I reckon. If we win that game, I think on, AFL 360, all those shows, they start actually recognising the work that Setterfield is doing for us in that midfield, and he's negating work. And we haven't really had a proper good target in a while, but I think Will Setterfield is starting to become that. And I think it is an important role in footy tagging, Like, we saw Gold Coast, for example. They don't tag. We saw Merrett's influence on the game. There you go. Not that it really mattered, but there you go. Jordan Ridley. It's good to talk about him again. First game back, I thought he was good. I liked his intercepting. We really missed that, just having a player who can intercept in the air. That is something we haven't had in a long time, it feels. He had a game-high 5 intercept marks. That is elite. There were a few iffy moments. There were 1 or 2 times where he could have spoiled but went for the mark and it went the wrong way. And that would be rust. The guy hasn't played consistent footy in a while. Since Dreamtime he hasn't played. So he does get a bit of leeway. But aside from that, I thought he was really strong for us back there. He was solid on his direct opponent and intercepted and used the footy well. Didn't tear a muscle. That is a plus. So Ridley gets a 7 out of 10. Really, it should be a 10 out of 10 because he's alive. He's not injured. I thought he clearly makes our defense better. And next week when Redmond comes back, I think, that's good. I don't even know who comes out for that. Maybe who does come out? Maybe Laverde. But he's been, I don't know. Speaking of Laverde, actually, I didn't even mean to do that segue. Jayden Laverde. Always a tough one to judge because, on one hand, he gets monstered. On the other hand, he shouldn't be playing on a player like Ben King to begin with. So credit to him for giving it a crack. He had 9 spoils for the day, some really strong body spoils. And he did get unlucky once or twice with some free kicks against him. But yeah, King did have a big impact and his direct opponent was Laverde. I feel like a 6. I don't think we can really blame Laverde too much for his direct opponent having a big day. Like, he's only playing on King because of injuries. It's like, if we were forced to play Isaac Kako on Ben King, would we blame Kako for... And that's a complete, that's a horrible example. But you get what I'm saying, right? Like, Laverde shouldn't be playing on Ben King. He should be playing on... I don't know, Ben Long or someone, but he's been forced to play on Ben King because of injuries, and Ben King's monstering him. I think Laverde's had some good roles this year. I liked him on Hipwood. He kept him really quiet. I thought he did some nice things on Charlie Curnow. But, I'm going to give him a... I don't know. I'm tossing up between a 6 and a 5, guys. It's kind of like that Goldie tax, when Goldie gets monstered by a better ruck, you got to cut him slack. I'm going to give him a 6. He is giving us effort. He is doing what we pretty much need him to do, which is just play. Like, we don't have any other options. Realistically, if this was someone that was actually part of our team in our future, I wouldn't be as happy. But because it's Laverde, who is a stopgap for the time being, I'm going to give him a 6. I think he's just doing what he's being asked to do. Archie Perkins, look, I actually liked the way he started this game. I thought he was giving it a crack early. I thought there was, he had that drop mark where Caddy hit him up on the chest, going inside 50, and he dropped the mark, and that kind of, probably set the tone a bit because he is very much a confidence player, Archie Perkins. But before that, he was getting stuck in. He was throwing his body around. It's probably the hardest I've seen him go at it in a fair while, like just that early stages of that first quarter. But yeah, it did go away, and you forgot he was playing, and then he subbed out of the game, and yeah, it's probably a... I didn't think he was really that horrible, but he was probably our worst player. So 3 out of 10. And you know what the frustrating thing is? Perkins subbed out, Gresham subbed in. Neither of them have much impact. That is pretty much just one less player for the game. No offense to these guys, like I get it, but yeah, this is someone who is just so low on confidence right now, and the issue is, how do you bring someone in for him? Because now Caldwell's injured. I'm assuming Sardis comes into the team. How do you bring in someone for Perkins? He's not a small forward. You know, you can't just bring in Oscar Smart because Perkins is a marking target, but also he's not marking the footy. And if you're bringing in Oscar Smart for Perkins, are you dropping Gresham? It is a really annoying situation that we're in with these underperforming players, because it is just hard to drop them. We don't have many like-for-like options on the outside, especially for Perkins. I think we've got close to like-for-like for Gresham and Hobbs. Who do we have that can come in for Perkins? That's my question. Because we can't bring in Smart and Guelphy and make our forward line absolutely tiny. I don't know. We'll see what happens. I think Perkins is going to play this week against Richmond. He shouldn't. If we had a fit team, I don't think he would. But I think he's going to. So yeah, 3 out of 10 for Perkins. Let's move on to one of our younger boys, Todd Goldstein. He was going up against Ned Moyle, who is a really decent ruckman. You never get to look in past Jared Witts. And this was a good battle. It was a really good, even, tight battle. And in all aspects, so they both had 9 touches. Moyle got himself a goal, but Goldie had some big defensive moments. Hit outs were really even. Goldie had 31, Moyle 35. On paper, it does look like Moyle gets the chockies, but Goldie did 25 less ruck contests and had more hit outs to advantage. I reckon of the two, Goldie probably had the better day, and that's just eye test. Like, it might not look like it on paper, and that's why stats can sometimes be deceiving. But I think Goldie won this battle, and to be fair, he should have. He is Todd Goldstein, a 300 and whatever game ruckman going up against Ned Boyle. I'm going to give him the 7 out of 10, and I think the interesting thing about this game is that it really does bring back the Vigo Goldie conversation. And I know that people want Vigo to play. I also want Vigo to play. We want him to develop. But do we want it to come at the expense of our engine room? Because the reason we won, or one of the reasons we won this midfield battle, was because Goldstein was playing. And that is why we got so many looks inside 50. We got more inside 50s than the Suns. If Vigo is playing, I don't think we see Kako and Caddy and May have the impact that they did. So you are, on one hand, if you play Vigo, you're developing him. On the other, if you play Goldie, you're developing more players in the process. And that's why I think it is hard to justify giving Vigo consecutive games. I think he should play, 1 or 2 times before the year ends, and I think he will. Round 24, we play twice in 7 days, I think, so that's going to be when Vigo has another go. But it doesn't make a lot of sense to me to be playing Vigo, in consecutive games, because he's just not going to give us as good a look in the midfield, which is not going to give us as good a look going forward, which will, decrease the output of Kako and Caddy and May. And our forward line is where we've got all of our young players. So I think it makes more sense for the future to be playing Old Gold, funnily enough, because he is double the age of Vigo. It sounds weird. I hope you get what I mean. But I think that makes sense. I think playing Old Gold now makes more sense for the future than playing young Vigo. Anyway, Peter Wright. And this is another guy who's been really important to our development. Because I've seen people say, give him a rest, bring Nic Martin in. He's doing a lot of rucking, Peter Wright. And that's why his stats might look a little bit poor. You'll see him 1 goal, 9 touches. But he 35 ruck contests, 21 hitouts. That is a really good win rate against better rucks. He managed to hit the scoreboard, although that was very lucky. He clean bowled McAndrew. That shouldn't have been a goal. He missed a goal he probably would have kicked as well. And yeah, I mean, if you told me that a key forward had 9 touches and a goal, I wouldn't really care too much. But I thought he was decent. Again, it's eye test versus on paper. And this has kind of been his role for the year. He's helping us, give us more freedom inside 50 at times, giving us more freedom for Goldie, giving him rests. It's an interesting balance, seeing how Wright can not only support Goldie, but also Caddy and May. So, interesting split. I think for the most part, it worked in this game. He gets a 6 out of 10. I think he'd be happy with his performance. Archie Roberts, I thought he was good as always. He has had 1 bad game this year, Archie Roberts, and for the rest of them, I think I've given him 6s, 7s, and 8s. He is just so consistent, so reliable. And I'm not going to talk about his game too much. I'm going to talk about one moment in his game. And this was almost the moment, it was the moment of the game. Not his involvement, but just, the moment itself. Because we all know the play where Kako goes on that run down the wing, he takes a few bounces, finds Caddy, who kicks the goal from outside 50. Awesome play, really exciting. But what you don't get on the highlights is the efforts before that by Roberts, who fought out a 2 versus 1 against Touk Miller and another Gold Coast forward. He was one out against 2 players on the ground. It was just rolling around. He was, little taps, little tackles. He was just keeping it bubbling, waiting for reinforcements to arrive. Jaxon Prior and I think Laverde might have arrived about 3 minutes after Roberts was just, battling by himself. But his work in that moment was awesome. It set up the goal for us. And the fact that it's Roberts, Kako, Caddy doing that work to get that goal, I love it. That is awesome. The game as a whole, 20 touches, 5 intercepts, almost 500 metres gained. Really solid game from Roberts. But that moment leading up to that goal just sums him up perfectly. He's a future leader of this club. I say this every week, but he is a real silver lining to come out of this year. And thank you to Doro. Sam Durham, he is back, which is good. I'm going to give him a 9 out of 10, same as Merrett. I thought these two were just head and shoulders above the rest on our team. Their midfield work was fantastic. Durham's stoppage craft was brilliant. 12 clearances, 7 involvements, 18 contested possessions, 6 inside 50s. He was unbelievable at the contest. And the way he hits the ball with pace and manages to get clean hands to it, it is so good to watch. And this guy's young. We forget about it, but he is part of our future. He's not a fully ready-made player yet. He's going to get better. That is just exciting, You watch games like this and you see him go at the contest full pelt and you think about how that's got to look when he's, 25, 26. Yeah, he was great. The midfield battle was a really tough and close one. I think we honestly probably got the upper hand maybe, or close to it. And Durham gave us that, I reckon, from the get-go. He was 100% up there with our best. Arguably the best. I think Merrett gets it, but flip of a coin as to who had the bigger impact. I haven't counted the votes yet. And the stats on face value look very different. But the eye test, Durham was right up there. Good stuff. 9 out of 10. Do I have a drink break? I reckon I will, just because I've got it here, and I don't want it to get too warm. And look, for me right now, it is 11 a.m. I've got the day off work, and you guys, you're a bad influence. Specifically, Jason, who suggested this. Best end to the day. Best start to the day. We've got a West End. Oh, and look, let me tell you, far out. That was almost a disaster. Almost all over my keyboard. I've had it. It's very foamy. You know what? More refreshing than I thought it'd be at 11 a.m. on a Tuesday. So I'll give it a 7 out of 10. How about that? No, we'll give it an 8 out of 10. Just because you've been asking for it for so long. West End. There you go. Jaxon Prior. I'm going to have another sip. Good stuff. Jaxon Prior. If I'm being honest, I completely forgot he was playing in this game. And that's not always a bad thing for a defender, if anything, that shows that he wasn't unbearably bad. If you forget a defender is playing, they're probably, for the most part, doing their job. But I think, I watch out for... The ball's down there a fair bit in the back six. We notice the defenders a lot. I thought he wasn't noticeable in any way, good or bad. And I think, 6 touches kind of tells the story. It's not always about touches for a backman, especially one like Prior. But he is someone who we do want the ball with more. I know that not everyone likes him, but we all know that he's actually a good kick of the footy. And the Suns did put a score on us. Prior's back there. He's in that defence. We don't just give him an easy out because, we didn't see him. I'm going to give him a 4. I just don't, I didn't see him do a lot offensively or defensively. I don't think he was playing a hard lockdown role. I saw him on a number of different players, tall and small. Yeah, correct me if I'm wrong. I could be wrong. Maybe he held down someone who I'm forgetting about. But yeah, I'm just going to assume that he was just defending, and none of our defenders were really that amazing. He was also not amazing going forward because he barely touched the thing. I'm going to give him a 4 out of 10. Archie May. This beer, by the way, has completely ruined my ability to speak because it's just so foamy. There we go. That's a bit better. Archie May, look, a bit stiff not to get the Rising Star nod. You know, I feel like if Kako wasn't playing, it could have easily been Archie May. He got the 3 goals, some very big goals too, all within 5 minutes of each other, which is fun. That third quarter was really the Archie May show. And I think the score sheet or timeline would have read May goal, May goal, May goal. Like, it was 3 in a row for the game, which is fun. I think look, I think his last game against Freo was probably a stronger, more consistent performance. I gave him an 8 out of 10 for that. It was second game, and he really got going for us. I'm going to give him a 7 here, just because. And this might be, I don't know if it's harsh or not. Should I give him an 8? No, I'm giving him a 7. I think we saw a really strong 5-minute period. Extremely promising. That 5-minute period is more promising than the Freo game because we saw what May can do at his very best. He can tear a game apart, like not many players in the AFL can just kick 3 goals in 5 minutes. That doesn't it's not a common occurrence. It really doesn't happen much. Archie May did that against, some good defenders. And with age or maturity, we will see his performance broaden, and he will be stronger over 4 quarters and more consistent. But he didn't touch the footy in the first, didn't touch it much in the fourth. I think, a really strong quarter of footy that gave us plenty of hope for the future. This game has told me a lot more about Archie May. I'm very happy with it. And 5 goals in his last 2 games as well. For someone who wasn't on our list a month ago, you know what? 8 out of 10. This guy was playing waffle footy a month ago. He's only just come to the club. So, yeah, leeway time. 8 out of 10 for me. I'll change it. I think 3 goals for a player who wasn't playing AFL footy and has only just joined, he's only just met this whole team. I think that's pretty good. I think we got to give him, and in a forward line that is hard to function in because there's not a lot going up the field. I guess it was easy with Merrett and Durham having blinders. But yeah, good stuff from May, and he really turned it around for us because I remember at that stage of the game, we were 3 goals down, and then I think he might have given us the lead. So yeah, at the time, it felt really significant. It obviously didn't mean too much in the grand scheme of things, but yeah, big moments, which is good. Good. Xavier Duursma. Now, there was talk about a late change with Duursma. There was he was on the phone to Brad Scott literally seconds before the game, and it was because he had back spasms. He was, having issues with his back right before the match. They were seeing if he was good to go. I believe Elijah Sardis was in the car, got a call from Scott or someone telling him that he might be needed. He wasn't in the end. And yeah, he ended up pulling on the boots. He looked a bit shaky early. The commentary picked up on it. He wasn't really quite, bending over. To be fair to him, he worked hard. He lasted the game. I'm sure he was fine, but he wasn't at his best. And he really didn't do heaps throughout the match. He set up the Nate Caddy goal early, but realistically, that was more Nate Caddy than Xavier Duursma. Aside from that, I don't really remember heaps of really valuable moments from Duursma. He got the ball a bit down back. He patrolled both wings. I didn't really feel like he had much going for him, and it didn't feel like a typical Duursma performance. And I've got high standards for him too. I really rate Duursma. I think he's one of our more important players in the team. Maybe there was a niggle. Maybe that's what it was. I think, clearly it could have been because he wasn't at his best, but he did put his hand up to play, so I'm going to give him a 5 out of 10. I didn't think he was that great at all. Nate Caddy, this guy is really starting to get going, and that's fun because it was another really strong performance up forward. I thought he was our best against Freo. I gave him the 3 votes. You guys did as well. And then here again, he gets three goals and another vote from me. I haven't checked the votes, but I've seen the comments in my feed, and there's a fair few Caddy votes, so he might be getting another 1 or 2. We'll see. And it's also, he just impacted in a lot of different ways. His work in the air was strong. It started early too. There was a contest on the wing to start the game where he brought the ball to ground in a really strong position against Mac Andrew, who's got much longer arms, gave the ball off neatly after. Simple acts like that. And his start to the game was great. You know, he was really getting amongst it, took that big mark, puffed the chest out, kicked the goal, goes back and nails 2 more, one from outside 50 on a tough angle. That was a beauty. Should have kicked 4 or 5. You know, he had that missed snap on his left that didn't make the distance, and he should probably be better on his non-preferred. That's something he could work on. Even when things didn't go quite right, there was a lovely kick to Perkins in the first quarter. He absolutely nailed it between 2 Gold Coast defenders, and Perkins dropped the mark inside 50. But yeah, the best thing about Caddy lately for me has been his entry work inside, or the most promising thing about Caddy has been his entry work inside 50. I love his moments, you know, I love the goals he kicks. Those are my favourite moments. But I expected that when he was drafted. Like, I think we all did. But I think, you know, the way he's used the footy going forward, bringing his players in, assisting, that's been developed even more lately since he got to the club. Just the accuracy of his ball use around the ground. And that gives me hope going forward for the future. The fact that he is developing into a really promising player and gaining new traits along the way, that is a big tick for our development, because that is not necessarily Caddy doing that. That is something that he's learning, I think. So yeah, I'm going to give Caddy an 8. I thought he was our 3rd best on ground. So great stuff. We're Luamon Lual. Another game with really good signs. I don't know where this came from. This is a guy who shows more in the AFL than he does in the VFL. And I don't know, maybe it's the pace of the game that suits him. Maybe it's an intensity thing. I don't know. You know, he just shows more at this level than he has in the VFL this year. And look, let me say, I don't think he was a big part of the game. He went missing after halftime. But for a kid in his 4th game, he was seen as a genuine delisting option a couple of months ago, or probably less. For him to come in and impress us as a fan base as much as he already has, I think he's showing enough to get a new contract. And that second quarter, I say he wasn't a big part of the game. I said that before, but that second quarter he really was. His energy was palpable. It wasn't just effort, but it was leading to big moments. He's nowhere near finished product, Lual, but he is showing really positive signs. And it's funny because I wasn't thinking that way when he was in the VFL. I thought he was going to be delisted. 7 out of 10. Not a complete game, but for a project player like this who is still developing, we got glimpses, we got signs, we see more to like, even if it was fleeting. And another young developing player, Angus Clarke. For starters, he's out of the back line. He's featuring more in the attacking half of the field, playing up, and back on the wing a bit, which is good. And even though he is technically a defender, like that is where he was drafted, and it's where he started the year, and it's where he's played more footy, I feel like he does just look better on the wing. You know, he uses that tank, he puts himself in good positions, he impacts in the air really well, he's a great timer of his leads and knows where to be in the forward line. He got another goal through his aerial work, which is great because he's so skinny still. He drives the ball forward. When he plays on the wing, it's kind of lower disposal, but 13 touches, but high meters gained, over 350. And he managed to hit the scoreboard again, which I really like. I like a good Angus Clarke goal. He seemed to feature off the back of a stoppage a bit when he was on the wing, so that was interesting. That'll probably develop more when he, grows some meat on the bones, because he is very, very skinny. I was watching the game with my mother, actually, who, the Angus Clarke, the mum's tick of approval. And every time he got the ball, she seemed very worried for him, because he does look like a child out there. But he doesn't play like one. He's got grit to him. He's got tenacity. He is not only a fan favourite, but a coach's favourite. He was the one that announced the Rising Star nomination for Kako, actually. So he's a player's favourite. Scott did say before the game that Clarke wouldn't come out of the team no matter who came back. That really, it looks like a footballer for the future, Angus Clarke. Awesome find. I was hyped when we got him in the draft, but I didn't think he'd be this promising this early. So great stuff. Nic Martin, I thought he was okay. Just okay. I feel like this is another Nic Martin game. No, not bad, not good. I don't think he's going to be telling the grandkids about that Saturday afternoon against the Suns. 22 touches, some nice passages, some quiet periods. It was a pretty standard game of footy. It was definitely one of the games of footy that Nic Martin has played in his career. I'm going to give him a 6 out of 10, and I think we will all forget about this game pretty quickly. There really wasn't a lot to it, it felt. Zak Johnson, he was on for a big one early. The other week when he had almost 30, I thought that was the vibe here again. He had 6 touches in the first half. All of them came early, or it felt like they came early. And then for the rest of the game, he only managed 10 more. Ended with 16. Didn't go by his foot as much as usual, just the 7 kicks. went at 100% by foot. That's Zak Johnson for you. He's just reliable by foot. Not an amazing game. He was pretty quiet, all things considered, but that's fine. That's going to happen for a player this young, and that's the thing about this team. We've got about, how many players do we have like this who are just going to have quiet games, and we can't really blame them. 6 out of 10. And the thing now is, Redmond comes back next week. There will be a player squeezed out. Zak Johnson is, you could argue it's him, and I hope it's not, because I'm a big Zak Johnson fan. But you could argue Prior, but I think Prior is more defensively sound than Johnson, and we probably need that. I get the feeling Redmond comes in for, do I? I don't know, it could be Johnson. I hope it's not. I hope I'm wrong, but it could be. And if it's not, then it just shows Scott is really prioritising him in the same way that he is Clarke. But yeah, 6 out of 10 for this particular game. Finally, for the players, Lachlan Blakiston. And this is where we cut slack. This is the leeway lane over here. 4th game as a key defender for Blakiston ever. Came into the club a month ago. Cutting the long story short, I'm not going to go on, but yeah, he deserves a bit of leeway. And realistically, he was at fault for a few of the goals. I feel like he hasn't quite nailed that judgment of a ball coming in towards him yet. He gets caught under it a bit. There are a few times where he is, jumping almost backwards trying to spoil because he just doesn't know how to focus on ball and opponent. That is tough for someone to do so early in their defensive lifespan, especially against AFL forwards. I say AFL forwards. He was on Ethan Reid for most of the game, and Reid kicked 3 goals on him. Reid's barely kicked any goals, he lately 2 in 6 games. So it's not like he's a proven goal scorer, and he did have a bit of a day out. But also, although Blakiston was a bit leaky defensively, I thought we saw some really good glimpses. I actually really rate his ground ball intercepting, or not even ground ball, but him running towards the footy. He knows when to come off his opponent and impact. If he's moving towards the footy or outside of his marking range or far away from the goals, he is really effective, and he's a really prolific interceptor, especially for someone so new to the role. 7 intercepts for this game, the equal most with Ridley, and that is now 16 intercepts in 2 weeks. Those are elite numbers. But yeah, it's just when the ball is coming towards him, I worry a bit, because I just don't think he quite knows how to defend that situation yet. I'm going to give him a 7. I thought he made some really costly errors, but that is always going to happen with a player so fresh in a new role. I think he's shown enough to get a new contract as well. And what I want to see, it might not even be in the AFL, I want to see him ruck, because I like a lot of his traits. I like the way he moves. I like the way he takes the game on when he gets the ball. It is scary sometimes when he does it, but I think that'd be really fun for a ruck. So even if it's in the VFL, I wouldn't mind seeing him go about it in the ruck there. 7 out of 10. And moving on finally to our coach, Brad Scott. A tough one, because another late fade out. Another, comfortable win for our opponents. But I did really appreciate the change in style. I feel like, we're playing a lot more direct, and it's a lot more pressure-based. This game style feels better. It can hold up more than defending with the footy. I'm going to give him a 6. I think, not even close to a perfect performance. We weren't close to winning the game in the end. But I feel like he's giving us a game style that can hold up when we actually have the players we want playing. And I appreciate the way we played in this game more than if we were to lose a close one in a boring game where we chipped it around in defence all game. That's the way I see it. So I'm going to give Brad Scott a 6. I liked the way we played this game, even if we faded out late. But yeah, that is all. Cheers for watching. Another player ratings video. I might be a tiny bit late with the next one, because I'll be over with you guys in Melbourne for the weekend, watching Richmond and focusing on the draft a bit. We'll see. Remember to give me a drink suggestion. It could be alcohol. Probably won't be drinking any more alcohol at 11 a.m. on a Tuesday. But that is all. Cheers for watching, Bomber fans. Another player ratings video. Like, subscribe, and go Bombers.